everybody, welcome back to another episode of Awesome Finds. This is the series where I showcase my latest vinyl pickups, and I have a ton of records to show you, over 20 releases. So let's not waste any more time and begin with this record. And this is the kind of record that gets me excited as a collector. Just seeing a release do justice to a band 50 years later is something I absolutely love. This is Beyond Rodan by the band Max. Now, some of you may be familiar with the original pressing that came out in 1974. Only 200 copies were made, and now it has this cult status with some copies selling for well over $1,000. Well, it turns out that particular release was unauthorized. None of the band members had anything to do with it, and they didn't even get the band's name right. So this 2024 pressing aims to correct all of that. Not only is the original 1974 LP remastered from the original master tapes, it's also expanded with 8 previously unreleased songs. It's in a new gatefold sleeve that includes a ton of photos of the band, plus some great liner notes that give a brief history of the group. It's one of those stories where a band gets really close, but it never breaks into the mainstream. I mean, they shared the stage with some of the biggest names at that time, including the Grateful Dead, Moby Grape, Tower of Power, Manfred Mann, Eric Burton, Malo, Santana, Canned Heat, War, Bo Diddley, Quicksilver Messenger Service, and many, many more. Their live shows were supposedly pretty incredible too, with lights and pyrotechnics, and since all of the band members were multi-talented, you would often see them switching instruments or even exchanging instruments with each other. And what really set them apart was their horn section with saxes, trumpets, trombones, flugelhorn. Musically, they pushed it even further with unique time signatures and chord structures. And they were always hungry for challenging musical compositions, and this album is full of that. I would say overall the vibe is like 70s progressive rock infused with elements of jazz and funk. For me, all of the tracks have a great groove to them, and when I listen to this, I am shocked that these guys weren't on the radio at that time. Apparently, they had interest from record labels, but nothing ever came to fruition, which is a real shame. I can say that track 3 on side 1, Got to Give, would have been a radio single. So if this sounds at all interesting to you, you will not be disappointed. I highly recommend picking this record up, and it's available from digital sellers. They did a fantastic job. The record sounds fantastic, and as of this taping, this is not available digitally. The only way you can listen to it is on vinyl. That may change in the future, but if you have the means, definitely pick this record up. It is a hidden gem, plus the cover art is amazing. I want to thank David and Josh Cordopassi for sending me this record. And it shows. All right, so next up I have 2 records from a relatively new record label called Rabbithole Club. Now, they're primarily known for releasing vaporwave and electronic music on cassette, but they have released a couple of vinyl records, and I have 2 of them to show you today. The first one is really interesting. It is Micromecha, Time Flows Constantly. And if you're into vaporwave, you need to check this one out. Apparently, this record falls into the barber beats subgenre of vaporwave, which is a new genre for me, and honestly, I'm not the best person to explain it, but basically, the music on here is made from samples and breakbeats, but it's the way that Micromecha puts them together that I really love the sound of. I mean, most of the samples are what I would call like jazzy saxophone, bordering on smooth jazz, and it's coupled with that sort of 90s drum machine sound, not quite as slow as trip hop, but still not quite as energetic as dance music from the 90s. And the blending of these 2 elements is done exceptionally well. I'm very impressed with the work of this artist. But what I really love about this record is that it's very chill, very meditative. It's sort of like put it on and forget about the troubles of the day. It's available on vinyl. However, the cassette is currently sold out, but of course you can always stream it over on Bandcamp. So up next, I have this release, and very rarely do I stumble across something that I have never heard before and truly sounds otherworldly. And this 2024 release by, I want to say it's pronounced Magnum Innominandum, has created just that. And I apologize for getting your name wrong. I mean, even the cover of this album, I'm just so confused by it and yet incredibly intrigued. Near as I can tell, the title of the album translates from Arabic into English as Necromancer Empire, and I think that's a pretty fitting title for this music. And I'm going to attempt to describe it as Middle Eastern style music fused with hip hop from the 90s with some very interesting, heavily echoed vocals on top. It's very atmospheric, trance-like, but this isn't a dance album or techno music. It's much more laid back. It almost has a reggae beat, but it's not quite that. It almost makes me feel like this is a soundtrack to a film that never came out. It's like a 90s horror movie set in the early internet days. So this is available on this really cool blue color vinyl. They also made a cassette version of it, but it is sold out. But of course, you can always stream it over on Bandcamp, and I hope you do because this is a really cool release. All right, moving right along, this was the collaboration I was not expecting, but I'm so thankful that two of my favorite contemporary electronic artists got together to create this wonderful instrumental album titled Music 2. And what I really love about this record is that I can hear both artists' distinct voices very clearly. They blend incredibly well together, and it's a real treat to me because, you know, you might think that this being an all-instrumental album, their voices might blend together too much and get lost, but I can so clearly hear who contributed to what on each song. Overall, I would call this electronic music that's heavily influenced by 90s computer and video game music, so they take that style of music that was meant to be in the background and they bring it into the foreground and treating it almost like you would a pop song without vocals. The result is something that really resonates with me because I love a lot of these sounds that these two artists also love. So you can hear inspirations from the original Donkey Kong Country game, but you can also hear PlayStation 1 sounds. And there's also a heavy use of iconic MIDI instruments. These are like imitations of real instruments such as the harmonica. So it has this really cool sound about it. Another thing I really like about it is the variety of songs on here. I mean, there's some upbeat tempo ones, more relaxing ones, some more new agey ones. So if you're a fan of vaporwave, video game music, and city pop, then this album will be right up your alley. So I have this sky blue vinyl edition here, but it's also available on cassette, CD, and of course streaming. I also want to give a credit to the record label because they are still keeping vinyl prices reasonable. Right now you can pick this up for $25 plus shipping. In this day and age where vinyl prices keep going up, 100% Electronica is somehow keeping prices reasonable, so thank you very much. So up next, I have a local music spotlight. This is Voodoo 5, the exotic sounds of Skip Heller. And honestly, this band is making some fantastic modern exotica music, and it's done with such love and care, invoking the titans of the genre like Les Baxter, Arthur Lyman, Martin Denny, Uma Sumac, Eden Abes, as well as Robert Drasnin, whose Voodoo trilogy inspired the name for this band. So this is the latest project from Skip Heller, and he knows the genre very well. And one of the things I really love about this album is the arrangements and the way he approached the genre. The band he put together are just exceptional musicians, and together they create this sort of stripped down approach to exotica. The rhythm section is heavily influenced by East Coast Latin jazz, so you have congas and bongos, but you also have upright bass, which I love the sound of. There's also pedal steel guitar and vibraphone, and you have Skip Heller on guitar, and there's flute and bass flute, but the icing on top are the vocals by his wife, who invokes the classic 60s otherworldly Star Trek type singing. It's just awesome. This is a fantastic album that is really a love letter to that era of music and just extremely well put together. It sounds beautiful and puts me in a great mood, really relaxing me. I just can't get enough of it. I think one of the standout tracks is their cover of Miserlou, which I'm sure you've heard the Dick Dale version, but their cover brings it back to its exotica roots. This is out now on Black Fez Records, available on vinyl, CD, and of course streaming, so I highly recommend you put it on for your next cocktail party. So up next, I have My Morning Jacket, and they continue to surprise and delight my ears with their unique blend of indie rock with pop sensibilities. This is their 10th album titled Is. It's on ATO Records and it's new for 2025. And the first time I heard it, I immediately fell in love with it. There's so much variety in the song styles, and I feel like they are really stretching their creativity on this record. One thing that really stands out for me is the use of rhythm throughout the songs. It's not always a straight ahead type of rock beat. On some tracks, I'm not even sure where the beat's gonna go. And on the song Beginning from the Ending is in a 3/4 or 6/8 time signature, which really lends this interesting feeling to the song. Overall, the album has this sense of movement to it. It feels like we're going somewhere. It starts with a song that feels very much like the day has begun, and then we just kind of move throughout the day as the songs progress. And it makes me see this album as a metaphor for life, and each song represents a milestone or a moment. There's these beautiful, sweet, tender moments crescendoing into these euphoric passages. Other songs have a more danceable, upbeat feeling, but then you also have the song Squid Ink, which is like this low-down, dirty, fuzzed-out, heavy rock song that makes me feel like I'm in this divey Roadhouse-type bar. And peppered throughout all of the songs are these delightful little riffs. They're like sonic pieces of candy, like pop nuggets that just dance in my ears. So yeah, this is one of those records that as soon as it ends, I just want to flip it over and start it all over again. The vinyl edition is available in a bunch of different vinyl variants. I have the sky blue color here. It's also available on CD as well as streaming. So when you do check it out, be sure to listen to some of my other favorite songs, including Time Waiting and Beginning from the Ending. I can hear your love. All right, so up next, I have Miles Davis, Birth of the Blue, originally recorded in 1958. So this is new for 2024, but the recordings themselves have been released for a very long time, but this is the first time they've been given their proper recognition. So what happened was, back in 1958, Miles Davis put together this sextet of musicians, and they had only played together for about 2 weeks when they went into the studio to record these 4 songs. Then what happened was that they played a lot more live shows together, and they came back into the studio in the spring of 1959 to record what would become Kind of Blue, which, went on to be highly regarded and a big seller. And because of the success of this album, these 4 songs were kind of forgotten about. And it didn't help that the session ran 32 minutes long, which was way too long for one side of a record. And at the time, it was considered too short to be a record on its own. So they just basically shelved them for many years, not knowing what to do with them. Over the years, they became filler tracks for box sets and were largely considered bonus material to the Kind of Blue sessions. Well, this release aims to correct all of that. These recordings have been remastered from new transfers of the original stereo session tapes using an all-analog signal path. The vinyl was pressed by Quality Record Pressings, and if you've heard their work, you know what you're in for. This is an exquisitely produced vinyl record. The album cover is beautifully done, featuring tip-on sleeve printing on a heavy cardstock gatefold jacket. And I love the attention to detail in regards to recreating the iconography of the Columbia label from that time. This really feels worthy next to your copy of Kind of Blue. It also includes some fantastic liner notes written by Ashley Kahn, who is a renowned researcher and author who really knows this music and sheds some great insight into the recordings and why they should be given their proper due. But getting to the music, this is the stuff I live for. I love the sound they create on this record. It's got such a warm, cool vibe about it. And it's one of those records that is very accessible. You don't need to know a lot about music theory or modal scales and stuff. All you really need to know is that this is fantastic music. It really feels grounded, it's very much in the moment, alive, and it's just really well put together. There's some beautiful melodies on here, fantastic soloing, and everyone is just on their A game. So if you get the chance to listen to it on vinyl, I highly encourage you to do so, but at the very least, check it out if you haven't already. It's available on standard black vinyl, which I have here, as well as a limited edition blue vinyl variant. There's also a hybrid CD format, but of course, you can always check it out on streaming. If you're a fan of 90s era alternative music, then you really should check out Springhouse. They originally formed in the late 80s, and they were a post-punk meets shoegaze with a little bit of dream pop. They released 2 albums in the 90s, and then they kind of just went their separate ways until about 2007 when they came back to record this record, which came out in 2008. And this is a bit of a departure from their original sound. This is more acoustic driven with a lot of folk rock influence, taking cues from the Beatles and Nick Drake. On this record, they really capture that carefree acoustic guitar jingle era of the 90s that I love so much. There's a lot of positivity coming off these songs, and it's very relaxing and calming to listen to. I love putting this on at the end of a day. The songs are all beautifully arranged and the instrumentation is great. There's slide guitar, horns, strings, and the vocals are very sweet sounding. So yeah, this is out now on Independent Project Records. This is the first time it's being made available on vinyl. It includes a bonus CD featuring instrumentals, demos, and live recordings, and it's all housed in this really nice Unipack style gatefold sleeve. This is the black vinyl edition. It's limited to 500 copies. There's also 2 other vinyl variants available, or you can pick it up on CD, and of course it's available streaming, so I highly encourage you to check it out however you can. I think you're gonna dig it. This is an artist that defies genre and labels, which makes my job of reviewing this record that much harder. So the best way I can describe this record is like traveling by boat on one of those major rivers in Europe and just hearing all the styles of music as you pass through different countries. And tying everything together is Francesco's classical guitar playing, which is used very strategically, and it never overpowers the other phenomenal players on this record, which ends up being a showcase for everyone. And so I would say overall, this is a blending of jazz and traditional European music styles, which creates a very interesting sound. Francesco composed all the songs on here, and they are arranged really well. There is a lot of variety in the instruments presented. You have clarinet, violin, accordion, drums, various percussion instruments, saxophone. And while this album is largely instrumental, there are a couple of tracks that feature some really nice vocals. I believe the title of this album translates to the romantic nature of the impertinence of life. And I could be totally wrong, but basically, it's the notion that life is precious, it's beautiful, it's romantic. And I think that's a really apt title because this music is romantic. That's the theme I get from this recording through all of the songs. Probably my favorite song on here is a tribute to Django Reinhardt. This is track 2 on side B, but honestly, there are so many wonderful moments on this record. I really encourage you to experience it for yourself, if for nothing else, just to hear world-class musicians playing at their best. This is new for 2024. It's on Bird Box Records, which is a fantastic record label out of Rome, Italy. This was recorded directly to tape, and all of the mixing and mastering was done in analog. The record itself was pressed at Optimal in Germany, so it sounds fantastic. It's limited to 300 hand-numbered copies, and if you want that extra level of analog goodness, they do offer this album on 1/4-inch analog tape, but it is a bit pricey at $500. It's also available on streaming, so you have a bunch of different options, and I really encourage you to check this one out. All right, so up next, I have this record from Celia Cruz. And if you love the salsa dance, I mean, you owe it to yourself to give this record a spin if you haven't already. This is her first major release as a solo artist that came out in the United States back in 1966. The year prior, she left the Cuban band she got her start with, and on this album, she has Tito Puente and his orchestra backing her, and the music is incredible. Through 12 tracks, the album delivers superb arrangements by some of the top people in the genre, including Tito Puente. And even though most of the album breezes along at a fast tempo, track 3 on side 1 slows things down with a bolero, and this really showcases Celia's lovely singing voice. This particular pressing is put out by Craft Recordings, who are celebrating her 100th birthday all year long with a number of reissues. This is an all analog lacquer cut from the original master tapes by Clint Hawley and pressed at 180 gram vinyl. And what's crazy is that this particular reissue was sorely needed because this album hasn't been pressed since its original release back in '66. And so picking up an original copy in near mint condition is going to cost you a lot of money, so I'm so glad they're putting this out now. For the first time, you can now hear this on streaming platforms and in high-res digital audio, so no matter how you like to listen to your music, you'll be able to check out this wonderful album. All right, moving right along, I have another Celia album from Craft Recordings. This one is an essential must-own salsa album. This is her and Johnny Pacheco. This is their second collaborative album together, and this was originally released in '75, and I think it's amazing. This is a follow-up to their wildly successful first record from 1974. And with that record and this one, the intention behind them was to showcase Celia's voice, because according to Johnny, prior to that, she was often just like one part of the band and not the star. And so on these records, he really wanted the songs and arrangements to highlight her voice, her range, her personality, and I think they were very successful. This is just classic salsa music created by impeccable musicians, and it's a ton of fun to listen to. This happens to be the 50th anniversary edition, and it's the first time it's been available on vinyl since at least 1985. This particular pressing sounds beautiful. It's very clean and crisp, very rich and dynamic. This happens to be an all analog pressing with lacquers cut from the original master tapes by Clint Hawley at Well Made Music. It's pressed on 108 gram vinyl. I have the standard black vinyl edition here, but if you head over to the Craft Recordings website, you can pick up one of the limited edition black and white splatter vinyl pressings. Of course, it's available on streaming, so you really have no excuse. You gotta check this one out. So up next I have this record by Rockin Dopsie Jr. and the Zydeco Twisters, and if you know me at all, one of my favorite places on earth is New Orleans, and listening to this record puts me right back to that special place. This is new for 2024, and man, can these guys swing. I love the sound of this record. It's Zydeco mixed with early rock and roll, jump blues, boogie woogie, soul, and R&B. Now, his father was a very famous Zydeco player who recorded one song on Paul Simon's Graceland, and his kids have carried on his tradition with this band. All four of his sons play on this record, but there's also a ton of other incredible musicians from New Orleans on here. In fact, the band was just featured in the remake of Roadhouse, and they have played with Paul Simon, Bob Dylan, Beyonce, and many others. This record is very well produced. This album sounds so alive that I just can't help but smile when I listen to this. It's out now on ATO Records. It's available on this very beautiful purple color vinyl. You can also pick it up on CD, and of course you can check it out on streaming. Ooh, yeah. That's so up next, I have two records from a brand new label by Rhino. This is called Rhino Reserve. And the way I look at it is that they're taking the idea behind Rhino High Fidelity, but applying it at a lower price point and featuring deeper cut albums. I mean, these are records that are not as well known to the general public. And so these are also remastered from the original analog tapes. They are pressed at 180 grams in Oxnard, California. And the packaging is not as deluxe, so it's more of your standard record sleeve material, and it doesn't come with any extra liner notes, but I think what this does, it fills a void in the vinyl collecting world. Basically, they're picking albums that tend to go for a lot of money because there's a lot of demand today. However, these didn't sell well back in the day, so they're harder to come by. And in some cases, they haven't been reissued in like decades. So this series aims to provide a lower cost option while still providing high quality pressings. And so this first one is another wonderful New Orleans artist. This is Alan Toussaint. I think is how you say his name. This is called Southern Nights, and it is beautiful. I'll be honest, I was not familiar with Alan before I listened to this album. I knew the title track because of Glenn Campbell's version of it, which became a huge hit for him. But Alan's version is very different. It's got a real kind of psychedelic feel to it. And listening to it now, I'm shocked this song is over 50 years old because it sounds so contemporary. I feel like Father John Misty might have been inspired by the work of Alan. What I really like about this album is that at its core, it's beautiful, soul-filled rhythm and blues mixed with New Orleans style Southern music and just a hint of funk. It feels like a summer evening in the South. It's warm, it's comforting, it's got a great groove to it. There's also some fuzzy electricity about it, and I can't get over how lovely this record sounds. Alan was a wonderful singer, he had a great voice, and he was a very talented songwriter. If you get a chance, this record really shines on vinyl, but however you can listen to it, please do so. It is so very lovely. It is one of my favorite listens of this year, and I'm so happy to have gotten the chance to check it out. All right, so the other release from Rhino Reserves is Eddie Hazel, Game Danes, and Guitar Thangs. This is his solo debut album. And you know, honestly, he just blew my mind throughout this whole album. I mean, this record opens with an electric cosmic cover of California Dreamin', originally by the Mamas and Papas. He deconstructs this song, funkifies it, and just takes it to a whole new level. Like, I can't even listen to the original version anymore because he just completely reinvented it. And not only does he open the album with it, but he also closes it with a reprise of that song. I mean, the whole album is full of exceptional guitar playing and beautiful arrangements. And as much as this is his solo debut album, it certainly has the fingerprints of Parliament Funkadelic all over it. I mean, it was co-produced by George Clinton, and you got Bootsy Collins on here as well as other members of Funkadelic. Another bright spot on this record is his cover of the Beatles classic, I Want You, She's So Heavy. And again, just amazing guitar playing on top of fantastic arrangements. So long story short, this version sounds fantastic, but however you can get this album, do it. There is no doubt about it. You need this album in your life. You are going to enjoy it. And speaking of Rhino High Fidelity, up next I have 4 records from that series, and we're going to start with the second album by Television titled Adventure, originally released in 1978. What's interesting is that this was recorded 8 months after their debut, so it's one of those things like, you know, they say bands have years to write their first album and then less than a year to make their second, and so sometimes that can be too much pressure and we get the sophomore slump. Now, I wouldn't say that's the case for this album, but the 2 records are very distinct. Even though it's the same lineup during relatively the same time frame, I would say that this album has a cleaner feel to it. It's sunnier, and it has more of a pop polish to it. There's not as much anxiety or tension as there is on Marquee Moon. And I would say there are more vocal harmonies on here, and it tends to be more melodic overall. So on this record, they were allowed more time to experiment in the studio. Their label, Elektra, were pretty hands-off during this time, and they let the band do their own thing. So this led to them writing most of the songs in the studio. They recorded this at the record plant in New York City, which had a piano and a Hammond organ. And so they played around with different sounds and different textures. They added backing vocals, more harmonies, keyboards, different types of percussion. There's even some slide guitar on here, and they added a bunch more layers. So it's more sophisticated than their previous album. Unfortunately, this one failed to be a commercial success, and while the band was on tour trying to promote this record, they ultimately broke up and didn't reform until the 90s, and so this album isn't as well remembered or highly lauded as their debut, but still, I think it's worthy of your attention. As of this taping, it's still available for purchase, so if you're a fan of the band, I highly recommend picking a copy up, but at the very least, check this one out, especially if you're a fan of that early 80s shiny guitar-driven alternative music. I think you're really going to dig this. All right, up next, I have Ooh La La by Faces. This is their 4th and final album, and it was their most successful at the time of its release, reaching #1 on the UK album charts, knocking Led Zeppelin's House of the Holy off the charts. One thing I really like about this album is that it has 2 distinct sides. The first side is very high energy UK blues rock mixed with some honky-tonk piano. Then side 2 slows things down a bit. It's more acoustic rock driven. So overall, it's got this day and night kind of feeling. It was produced by Glenn Johns, and it has a very clean sound. There's not a lot of effects going on, and it sounds like how they would have sounded live. It's very punchy, direct, and very forward. If you're not familiar with Faces and you like a lot of what Rod Stewart does, I say you should really check out their whole catalog. There are some fantastic songs to discover, and this album is no exception. It's got a real good, no-frills, kind of stripped-down approach to blues rock, and once you put it on, you're in for a good time.
'Cause I'll be there, come what may.
All right, so up next, I have Alice Cooper's 3rd studio album, originally released in 1971. Musically, this is a fantastic hard rock album. If you're curious to know more about Alice Cooper, the band, this is a great album to start with. It has the massive hit song, I'm 18, which you've probably heard before, but the whole album is really worth diving into. They really carve out an interesting niche for themselves, combining the burgeoning heavy metal scene with the tail end of the psychedelic rock scene and creating this really cool, kind of funky, hard edge style all their own. What I also really like about this record is that it's not just all in your face brashness. There are quiet passages too with piano and acoustic guitar. Overall, this is very theatrical and there are a lot of dynamics to the music. It's very well sequenced, especially side 2, which feels like one long epic song. It's awesome to listen to, and it feels like this sonic journey. I love how it ends with Sun Arise. So it's sort of like this journey into madness and darkness, and then we come out the other side feeling great, ready for some coffee and eggs. It is really well produced by Bob Ezrin, and it's insane how modern this sounds. I gotta say, this pressing by Rhino Fidelity sounds so clean, full, and rich. It really doesn't sound like a 50-year-old record. And another thing I love about this release is the fact that they gave us the uncensored cover, which I think is hilarious, seeing Alice Cooper, turning his thumb into something else, because, on my original copy, it's censored here. You don't see that. So this to me just really encapsulates their attitude as a band, their stage presence, their sort of shock value, which was really how they gained a reputation back in the day. I mean, it caught the attention of Frank Zappa. But yeah, anyway, however you can get into this record, I highly encourage you to listen to it. It is a fantastic album. So last up from Rhino Fidelity, I have Paranoid by Black Sabbath. This is their second album, originally released in 1970. And you know what? I don't know what else to say. I mean, this pressing sounds fantastic. It has a very wide sonic spectrum and a rich bottom end, great balance between the high and low frequencies. The drums in particular sound very alive and punchy, which is incredible that they were able to pull all of this from the original recording. In fact, I compared it to my Vinyl Me Please pressing that I've had for quite a while now, and there's really no comparison. I mean, the Rhino Fidelity version sounds very crisp and warm. This one's got like pops in it. It just sounds kind of tinny. I even compared it to my original US pressing that I have here. Now, it's not a great comparison because this one's pretty worn, but one thing I noticed is the printing on the reissue matches the original much better versus my Vinyl Me Please one, which was like super blown out for whatever reason. Now, unfortunately, as of this taping, this is sold out, so you have to pick one up on the secondhand market, but honestly, you can't go wrong with any copy of this record. At the very least, check it out if you haven't already. It's available on pretty much every format, so you really have no excuse. It's just a classic album and worthy of your attention. All right, so next up, I have a Record Store Day showcase. This is Wes Craven's The Serpent and the Rainbow. This is the original motion picture soundtrack, but it's the original film mixes. This is a 1988 film, and it's about an anthropologist played by Bill Pullman who travels to Haiti to learn more about zombies, and it takes a much more scientific, real approach to zombies and voodoo. And I guess at the time, Wes Craven was trying to update zombies for the modern era. Now, the music is by Brad Fiedel, and it's really good. I mean, his use of synthesizers to add atmosphere and mood is fantastic. There's also some great use of reverb throughout the score, giving the music kind of this hollow, tinny sound. It's also very rhythmic, and there's a lot of drumming on here. It's simple and effective at creating a mood. Overall, this is a great suite of music that conveys a very lonely feeling for me. And what's really interesting is that prior to creating this score, the composer traveled to Haiti twice and actually witnessed a real voodoo ceremony. So I can't help but think he added a lot of his personal experiences into this record. The composer also created the scores for some of my favorite films, including The Terminator, Fright Night, as well as Terminator 2, True Lies, and Johnny Mnemonic. This particular pressing is new for Record Store Day 2025 and marks the first time the original film mixes are available on vinyl. Way back in 1988, the same record label, Varese Sarabande, released the original motion picture soundtrack on a single LP. This is a double LP pressed on blue vinyl. It's limited to 2,000 copies and features liner notes on the inside gatefold cover. I say if you're a fan of Wes Craven or horror soundtracks in general, definitely check this one out. All right, so last up, I have volumes 3 and 4 of the complete Stax and Volt singles, 1959 to 1968. And oh my gosh, these are wonderful. What makes this so special is that for the first time, this collection is being made available on vinyl. Yes, of course, you could probably spend, thousands of hours trying to get all of these 7-inch singles, but this is a great way to collect everything all at once and not have to get up and flip the record after every song. So the story goes, back in 1991, the Atlantic Group put together this compilation of 244 songs. It was a 9-volume CD set that came with a booklet with liner notes written by Rob Bowman. And that set has long been out of print. And so last year in 2024, Rhino decided to fix that and re-release this on vinyl. And then, so what they did with this is that they mimicked the original box set graphic design, and then they broke up the liner notes to each specific collection of music. So you still get the liner notes by Rob Bowman, it's just spread out among the different volumes. And they've already done volumes 1 and 2. Volumes 5 and 6 are set to be released later in 2025, but we don't know the release date yet. And what I love about this collection is that, yeah, it's got some of the big singles on here, but it also showcases a lot of the lesser known B-sides. I mean, there are a ton of hidden gems on these collections, and overall it flows so well together. And I see this, when I listen to this, I see it as being at like one of the most interesting parties you can be at, and you're just meeting all these really cool people for the first time, and then every once in a while you'll run into an old friend and you guys get along, and that's like those big hit singles, right? So like Sugar Sugar, Respect, or A Little Tenderness, and you know, it's just a lot of fun to listen to. So I should say that volumes 1 and 2 are limited to 2,500 copies each, but these two are limited to 2,000 copies each. You can pick them up over on the Rhino store online. And what's really cool is that if you buy them as a bundle, you'll save $10 for each set. So 1 and 2 are a set, and 3 and 4 are a set. But these are also available on streaming, so I hope you check these out. This is just an awesome collection of music that really does justice to these incredible record labels from the bygone era. All right, everybody, that will do it for today. Let me know which of these were your favorite. If you end up picking any of these up, let me know with a comment down below. Until then, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I also really want to thank my members over on Patreon who help to keep this show going with their monthly contributions. I'm your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side.